I'm an alligator. I'm a mama papa coming for you.
I'm a space invader.
I'm the space invader. I fucked that up. I'll be a rock and rollin' bitch for you. Name that song. Name it.
Fire by Arthur Brown.
Fire. Fire. Okay.
That's a great song and album, by the way, but we're not here to discuss Arthur Brown.
Hey, it's been a while.
Actually, for the people, it actually hasn't been that long. There was a nice little gap between Space Oddity and Man Who Sold the World, though. Sorry about that, guys. That's my fault.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess you're right. For the people, it really hasn't been a while. But for you and I, for recording purposes, it has been a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit. You know, we had some holidays. We had, the holidays were pretty busy for me. I'm sure they were for you too. We actually got to see each other in person. That was nice. And well, actually, no, that was around Thanksgiving, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm an idiot. But yeah, anyway, I'm sure you had to travel, right?
Yeah, lots of traveling as always for the holidays. And then it's always an adjustment getting back into the swing of things in the new year, which, by the way, Happy New Year to you, all of our Sound of Music listeners. Merry Christmas for that matter.
Happy New Year, everybody. We're plus a new year. We're minus a amazing drummer, by the way. We lost Neil Peart, so
R.I.P. Which, by the way, do check out that video. Rob, about a couple weeks ago, posted a reaction video, which I think you posted the day of.
Yeah, it was the night of. I was actually
was announced, right?
Yeah, I was gonna actually record something completely different from my other channel. I have a video I had all scripted out, and I was just gonna do the voiceover for it.
Shameless plug, by the way.
No, I'm not plugging it because the video's not even out yet. But keep an eye out for that.
You can plug your other channel.
Please subscribe to Kuroda Kaisuke if you like gaming. No,
there it is.
There you go. Anyway, I wasn't going to go that route, but the point was, anyway, I was in the middle of doing that, and our mutual friend Matt texted me, and he's like, dude, I'm pretty sure Neil Peart died. And I was like, are you kidding me? And my first reaction, though, like, as messed up as this sounds, like, I went and checked many sources to see, because you know how the internet is these days, where, like...
Yeah.
Like, I remember when Tom Petty passed away, they reported it really, really early, and he hadn't passed away. In fact, he was in the hospital and was, I think he was in a coma, but he was still alive. And, like, even Rolling Stone posted it, and, like, online, and people were getting really mad, so... In this day and age
and then when he did eventually pass, people were still questioning it. That was a fiasco.
In this day and age of, like, clickbaity headlines and stuff, you gotta be careful. But yeah, obviously,
sure,
it ended up like so many outlets were saying it that I was like, well, now I feel like I can't even concentrate on this video, and I'd rather talk about Neil. So that's what inspired that, basically. So.
Yeah, no, and that was such a great video, and when I was watching it, it made me think of us and getting into Rush and. Made me think about that first, time you and I saw Rush with some of our friends, the aforementioned Matt and a couple other people as well, and, being just teenagers and, just thinking about that. Big loss, sad loss. Funny enough, actually, maybe not funny enough, but oddly enough, Rush was originally going to be the next band we were going to do after the King Crimson series.
Yeah, I was going to say that, which is really strange because we'd probably be in like the 2112 Farewell to Kings era right now if we had started it, and it would have been really strange if we had been going through Rush's discography and during that Neil passed away. So but kind of related to this podcast, I think it was you that were telling me the other day on the phone that didn't he pass away like the same day as Bowie?
So I was actually wrong about that.
You were?
Okay. So the announcement of his death was on the 10th, which was the day that Bowie passed away. But he had actually passed that Tuesday prior.
Oh, okay. But it's still weird,
Still weird nonetheless, yeah. But it wasn't actually that day. They, I guess, waited a few days before announcing it to the public.
Jeez, yeah. That was a tough one. That one, him and like a guy like Bowie and a guy like Tom Petty and Ronnie James Dio and like I've said to you before, a few other ones. It's tough when musicians like that pass away. You know, it really is. Especially, I don't know. It's something about like those legends. You know.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get into the main topic of today's episode, another shameless plug is you also posted another video just the other day, your reaction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees for this year.
Yep, that was interesting. You guys can see it.
You don't
it's right
sound too excited about it, but definitely check that video out as well, guys.
Thanks.
I got a big kick watching that. Rob and I off mic haven't really discussed the nominees this year. I'll just say that there was a lot I agree, a little bit I disagree. We'll leave it at that for now, but definitely a video worth checking out.
So I guess instead of doing Ziggy Stardust right now, we're going to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm just kidding.
We'll see that for another time, my friend.
In the meantime, we're going to get to Bowie like in just a second, but I'm just going to do the quick update and then what do you say? You want to just get right into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I was very, very briefly, I just was talking to Andy about this off camera or off mic, I guess. And I finally did hear something back from Anchor about distributing our podcast, and there was some issue they had distributing it with either the title or the images I used in the title. So the podcast has not been distributed. It was pretty much me waiting on hearing from them, and it took them over a month to actually email me that. I just got it the other day, so I'm going to try to work on that, and if I have to manually distribute it myself, I could just do that, and maybe I could at least try to get it on Spotify, and yeah, I'll see what I can do, but for now, again, if you only want the audio versions of this, they're all up on Anchor. Well, everything up to Man Who Sold the World is up on Anchor. I'm hoping by the time this is posted and people actually hear this on YouTube, you can go to Anchor and find, you can find this episode and the two before it on there as well. So yeah, we're on Anchor, and hopefully we'll be on the other platforms very soon. I apologize for the delay.
And just to be clear to you guys, because you had said up to Man Who Sold the World on Anchor, the Hunky Dory episode is currently on YouTube, just not uploaded on Anchor as of this recording, correct?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, actually, Man Who Sold the World is also not on Anchor yet, so it's actually up to Space Oddity.
Up to Space Oddity,
yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to throw out there to you was I had mentioned, I believe it was the last episode, the Hunky Dory episode, that Anchor has the offline mode or ability.
Yeah.
I actually want to apologize for that because it actually doesn't. So
oh, really?
I do apologize for that because I was really pushing Anchor for people who have been wanting to listen to our podcast, or people that currently do, to not have to rely on YouTube. I know a lot of my podcast listening is on my way to work, on my way home from work. Being able to download my podcasts, as well as my music for that matter, offline is such a handy feature. It looks like, at least on the Android version of Anchor, there isn't an offline mode at this time, so I just wanted to put it out there because I said that in one of the last episodes, and just want to apologize that is not true.
Okay, good. Thanks for correcting that. I actually didn't know that either. So in that case, what I will really try to do is get them on Spotify if I can. If I have to manually add them, I'll do that, because Spotify is pretty much, for at least me, it's my choice platform as far as music streaming goes. So, I'll try to at least get up there. I know a lot of people use Spotify, so.
Is that it for updates?
That's it for update, man. Let's talk about Mr. Bowie and his.
All right, Mr. Bowie. Oh man, we are studio album number 5.
Wow.
The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
I can't believe we're here, by the way. It's awesome.
Yeah. So, fuck it. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
So. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, released on June 16th, 1972 in the United Kingdom. It was... Oh, I just had the charting. Come on, man. We still continue to be professionals.
I've actually got it. It went to number 5 on the UK charts. It went to number 75 on the Billboard 200. And then when it was... Then in 2016, this must have been shortly after Bowie passed away, it actually reappeared on the charts and went to number 21. Number 3 on top catalog albums. And then randomly in 2018, it charted again at number 32 in Greece.
It's very random.
In Greece, which is very, very random.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the one. I mean, this is for a lot of people. This is the one. This is the, Bowie had Space Oddity prior to this. He had Life on Mars, but this, in terms of a record, this was really kind of the first big one.
Now, I know we've discussed this on previous episodes. In fact, I think we might have even discussed it on the Hunky Dory episode a little bit, but I wanted to get into this real quick if we could, because this was the album that we bonded over with Ziggy Stardust. So I'm curious. I wanted to ask you, actually, sure. What was it about this album? Because I know it was your first album that you really got into. Because I remember really trying to get you into Bowie, and I don't know whether you had heard about Ziggy Stardust or if I badgered you enough where you finally listened to it or what have you. But I recall I must have been there when you bought Ziggy Stardust on CD way back in the day. So what was it about Ziggy Stardust that captivated you? Why did you want to hear, what made you want to listen to it and all that?
Yeah, so from what excuse me, from what I remember at the time, I think what was appealing about the record to me before I even listened to it, so this was just reading up on it and conversations that you and I had about it before listening to it, was that would have been right around the time that I was into a lot of classic hard rock, 70s hard rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, stuff like that, but also really getting into progressive rock as well. And I was kind of looking for something that was in between all of that, you know what I mean, that had some of more of that,
right?
I don't want to use the term classic rock, but classic rock vibe, but some more of the idiosyncrasies of prog rock.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't necessarily think that that's how I said it to you, but I remember that that's kind of what I was looking for. And I remember we were just talking about this record and just the way you had spoken about it, I was like, I think this is the record I'm looking for. And that's what led me to check this album out. And yeah, this was absolutely the first Bowie album that I ever heard in its entirety. It's the one that got me into the man himself. So for that, this will always have a special place in my heart. And with that being said, I gotta tell you, as much as I love this record, it's not my top 5.
Well, you've since gone way deeper, way deeper, but obviously,
yeah.
I was just curious because, like I said, that was always my memory of you with Bowie, because I know for a little while, there was quite a few years where we weren't in very much a lot of contact, but I knew that you had gotten super into Bowie somehow, and I'm I always just associated oh yeah, I just remember him liking Ziggy Stardust, so it's just funny. I don't know.
Yeah, no, this was this one, like I said, was definitely the gateway for Bowie for me. But yeah, I mean, after that, a couple years later, really dove into Bowie, which we've discussed on some of the other episodes. And I don't want to diminish. Go ahead.
I also think I remember you being into Low, but anyway, I digress there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't want to, when I say it's not in my top 5, I don't want to diminish my feelings about this album or, how good or bad I think it is, because I think it's a freaking fantastic record. And it just goes to show you how great he was and how many classic records that he has that I don't put this one personally in my top 5.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's nice to hear that little insight, and that makes sense. Wanting to hear something kind of a little different, but sort of similar to what you were into at the time. Because I remember that. I remember you getting really heavy into prog. You were discovering bands like Genesis around then, and I remember us listening to a lot of Crimson and stuff. So Bowie seemed like it was a good choice.
And and now thinking about it and you asking me that question, I think what I love about Bowie so much is as I was exploring the other records, different phases of Bowie's career got me into so many other bands. So like this era really got me into the Velvet Underground, which is another one of my favorite bands. Really got me into the Stooges. Eventually grew an appreciation for T-Rex, stuff like that. And then like other eras of Bowie that we can get into when we talk about those records got me into other artists like Brian Eno, King Crimson, etc.
I recall, actually, I do recall talking to you a lot about the Berlin trilogy because I was super into krautrock at the time. And I remember you had gotten really into this era of Bowie, and I recall us talking about, like, I remember talking to you about, like, the influence of bands like Kraftwerk and Can and Neu and stuff on stuff like Heroes and Low and stuff like that. So, yeah, I actually do remember you diving a little deeper, but anyway, sorry, we're getting a little off topic, but I was just really curious about that, so...
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. That's I had to think for a second there.
I'm gonna just mention the personnel because you kind of gave the intro. The personnel on this album is largely the same as Hunky Dory, minus and plus like one or two people. So it's Bowie on vocals, acoustic guitar, saxophone, and arrangements. The wonderful Mick Ronson on electric guitar, piano, backing vocals, organ, synth, and string arrangements. Trevor Bolder played the bass. He wasn't the bass player for the last album, I don't think, right? I think that this was his new...
I think he was not.
Okay, yeah. So he played bass guitar and trumpet randomly, and then Mick Woodmansey, I think I said the guy's name right. Was,
yeah, he was on the last record too.
Coming back for drums, yeah. And then there was looks like Mr. Rick Wakeman played a little bit on It Ain't Easy. He played some harpsichord, and there were some backing vocals done by Dana Gillespie. So, yeah, there we go. And the album was... Okay, it was not produced by Tony Visconti. Interesting. It was produced by Bowie and Ken Scott.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that Ken Scott produced... he was an engineer for the Beatles for a little bit. He produced Elton John, a couple Floyd records, Procol Harum. Oh God, who else? Mahavesi Orchestra, Devo, several other acts. But very well-known producer in the 70s, late 60s or early 70s.
Cool.
I'm not sure if that's accurate though. As far as I could have sworn Tony Visconti was also part of this record. I don't know. I have to look into that. But...
It doesn't. I'm looking on his Wikipedia page right now. It doesn't say anything about Tony Visconti, at least as far as producing it. But I don't even see him on the personnel list, to be honest.
No, I don't either. I'm gonna have to look into that because I could have sworn on the 5 years box set he wrote the liner notes for this. I don't know, but anyways, should we get into it track by track?
Let's do it.
Before we do that, we talked about on the Man Who Sold the World episode, we talked about speaking of Tony Visconti, the band that Bowie was in just prior to this period that kind of segued into this Ziggy Stardust band, Arnold Korn.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want to bring Arnold Korn up was because songs like Moon Age Daydream and Hang On to Yourself were originally Arnold Korn songs, and we briefly talked about those versions on the Man Who Sold the World episode, but there were also even demos of I believe Ziggy Stardust and Lady Stardust that were also recorded
interesting
with Arnold Korn. So I just wanted to put that out there because Arnold Korn was really sort of like the prologue of what would eventually become the Spiders from Mars band.
Very cool. Yeah. I didn't even see. That's something that I didn't even know. So that's pretty interesting.
Well, there you go. Yeah. But now we can get into it. Let's. All right, here we go. Side 1, track 1. In my opinion, one of the greatest album openers on any record. 5 years.
And I remember you saying that way back in the day, shortly after you first started listening to this album too. I remember you saying that to me, and I think it's great that you still think that.
No, I do, and I'll get into it when we talk about the closing track. But I think this record has not only one of the greatest openers, but also one of the greatest closers as well. Both of those tracks are just bombastic pieces of music. But let's talk about 5 Years. Oh my god, I love this song so much.
The build-up's great. I like how it just starts out with just like a very simple drum beat, and then it just builds and builds and builds, and great stuff. And the lyrics are fantastic.
The lyrics are fantastic. Like you said, that build up until the very end when his vocals. I mean, he's practically screaming at the end of the song, and then it becomes this chant. 5 years, what a surprise! Oh, it's just
strings come in. Love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, I think I might have one of the other episodes I talked about. My brother and I a couple years ago saw the what was it called?
Was this the Bowie cover band or the Bowie experience?
Yeah. There was a specific name for it, but basically it had members of several incarnations of Bowie's studio and live bands over the years, led by the great Mike Garson, of course. But they didn't open with this song, but they played it, and it was one of the highlights of the show.
Nice. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines in this song is a cop knelt and kissed the feet of a priest, and the queer threw up at the sight of that. I like that line for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just really good. Yeah. I think actually this has got some of the best lyrics on the album, and kind of highlights. I think it's a nice little way to introduce the album, and I think the song itself actually is a nice little preview of the rest of the album.
Well, absolutely, and I think something we didn't mention at the top of the episode was that this is a concept record.
Yes,
and we'll get more into the concept and the themes as we get into some of the other tracks. But I mean, this song really does sort of serve as like a prologue to the story, because the character Ziggy Stardust isn't mentioned until I believe track 3. But this song kind of talks about the how Earth is doomed, and that within 5 years we're going to see the destruction, and it sort of already foreshadows the aftermath of that, hence why it serves more as a prologue. But
it's cool.
I mean, oh god, this song is so good. I was thinking about it when I was listening to this record again earlier this morning. This is a track that could fit on Diamond Dogs, I think.
Oh yeah, it's kind of thematically it's the same. Yeah, it's got
thematically, yeah, for
that
sure.
Like apocalyptic theme to it. It's great.
Which isn't the first time that Bowie explored those themes, and of course he continues on later records, just like Diamond Dogs. But yeah, what an opener, man. I just don't. I don't know what else to add. It's a freaking amazing song.
It's one of those songs, again, that like the build-up is really what makes it. I love music like that. I love pieces like that. Sometimes, with certain music, it's the way that the melody, it's everything. It's the melodies, it's the build-up of the song, it's the lyrics, the vocals. Oh my god, like the vocals are so good. I don't really know what else to say about it. I just really like this song, and like I said, the build-up element is a big one. Not all songs can really actually do that well, but this song is an example of probably the best of that.
On the Ziggy Stardust Wikipedia page, I was reading just about some live versions of this song, and apparently this song Bowie was originally going to close his Live Aid set with. But I guess he had dropped it at the last minute because I have it right in front of me. Hold on. But it was dropped the day before the concert to allow time for the broadcast of the famous Appeal video featuring Drive by the Cars as its soundtrack. Which, I love the Cars. Don't get me wrong. However, I would have much rather have seen him close 5 years.
Oh yeah, that would have been
his
great.
live
Yeah.
aid set.
You kidding me?
Yeah,
that would have been awesome. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I don't know what else to say about it. We've both been kind of gushing over the song, but I'll just say it was a song like I feel like if you've never heard this album before, if you were to, put the needle on or whatever, or cue it up on Spotify, this song grabs you immediately, no question.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if this song doesn't get you into the record, then I mean, why bother continue listening? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so track 2.
Yeah, let's move on to track 2. Soul Love. This was always a track. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still a good song. Kind of like this gentle waltz. Again, kind of has that build up throughout the track like 5 Years does. There's a pretty cool climactic chorus before that saxophone interlude comes in towards the latter half of the song. Yeah, I mean, other than that, it's not a song I have too much to say about. I've always dug it. I think it's a good palate cleanser after coming off of 5 Years. But looking at the rest of side 1 and just seeing what's coming up after it, in comparison to some of the other songs, I just think it's okay. But still a good song nonetheless.
I think it fits well though. I feel like it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a smooth transition. It's not like with some other songs on here. I don't think the transition's that great, but really this whole first side, at the very least, the first 4 songs. I think I always felt like the first 4 songs really just flowed very well. And yeah, Soul Love is not my favorite of even really the excuse me. It's not really one of my favorites of this side or even really the album, but yeah, it's a nice tune. I like his vocals in it, and the sax is great. But yeah, it's not like I don't know. It's not unremarkable. I won't say that, but it's not like it doesn't blow my mind, But at the same time, I do like the track. So
yeah, same. It's definitely not one of like the mind-bending songs off this record, but it like you said, it does fit very well in this record, and even in terms of the sequencing, like I said, I think it's a great song to sort of follow 5 Years, a palate cleanser, like I said. I was reading up on this song too a little bit, and I didn't realize that on the actual Ziggy Stardust tour, he didn't play this song a lot. I guess apparently only played it twice, but there is a pretty cool version of it on stage, which is a live album that was released in '78 from the Heroes tour. That tour in particular, they did, in addition to obviously mostly songs off Low and Heroes, they did a lot of Ziggy Stardust songs, this one being one of them, and there's a cool rendition of this song on that album, but I just thought it was interesting that they didn't really play this one a lot on the Ziggy Stardust tour itself, and it looks like after the Heroes tour, he really didn't play this song.
Yeah. I wonder why. I mean, it's not. Did he go through a period where he kind of moved away from his '70s material a little bit?
He did, but that wasn't till like the '90s, because he did the Sound and Vision tour in 1990, which was in between the 2 Tin Machine records, and that was sort of like his way of playing a lot of those big songs one last time. Because if you look at like set lists from like the Outside tour in the mid 90s, he does a lot more like deeper cuts from the 70s, specifically Berlin era. But yeah, he did go through a phase in the 90s where he didn't really touch a lot of the 70s material.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really all I have for Soul Love. Like I said, it's a good track. When I said okay, I meant in comparison to some of the other songs off this record, especially the next 2 in particular. But yeah, not one I would not include.
You know how I'll sum up Soul Love, and I think you might agree with this? It's not one of those songs that I listen to on its own, like a couple of these other tracks. However, like it's essential for like if I'm listening to Ziggy Stardust, it's like it has to be in there. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah. I tend to make mixes of my favorite artists and bands on Spotify. It's just a playlist of my favorite songs. That's all it is. And this is not one that's on my Bowie mix, but again, it's one that's absolutely essential when you're listening to this record from start to finish.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so let's move on to track 3. And oh man, this is a monster. This is one of my favorites, Moon Age Daydream.
Yep.
This was another song that David Bowie tribute band group, whatever they were called. There was a specific name, and I can't remember. But anyways, they also played this song, and that they ripped. The singer, actually, I forget the guy's name, but he's always been a backup singer for the Stones, and he just freaking rips on this track. This was another one I had mentioned at the top of the episode, was originally an Arnold Korn song that was recorded a year prior to the Ziggy version. Obviously, the Ziggy version is the superior version. But this is the first track off the record that really gets into the story of our main protagonist.
Yeah, and it's also the first rocker, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, it's man, I don't know. This song always been one of my favorites. I don't know if it's cliche or not, because I know it's one of his kind of more popular songs, but I first heard this one not on the record itself, but on a Best of Bowie compilation. And this one always just stood out to me. I love the sci-fi themes and the lyrics and the oh man, and that guitar solo is like one of the best guitar solos Mick Ronson's ever done.
I have that in my notes. That guitar solo. I over what sounds like a synthesizer. That might not be. I think
he might be using a I don't want to say a flanger. He's using a pedal.
There's something, but that guitar solo, it's almost the guitar solo itself is like very like trippy sounding, but it has like what sounds like this synth playing over it. It's probably not what it is, but that's what it sounds like to me. But that is one of my favorite guitar solos.
Oh, it's so good, and it's not even like a complicated solo. It's because you don't need to have it. You know, you don't need to play like Steve Vai or something to have a great guitar solo.
No, of course not. I could get into what could be like a whole episode about, you know, my feelings about, you know, these technical virtuoso guitar solos. Like I agree. Yeah. Like a guitar solo does not have to be technically amazing.
It gives me the guitar solo for this song is to me on par, not quite as good, but you know, it's in the same vein as something like Comfortably Numb, where you know, the guitar solo at the end of Comfortably Numb is not like, it's not flashy, but God, he just hits the notes right where they should. You know,
I like that comparison.
It's where he hits the notes. It's awesome. Awesome. I always, absolutely. As soon as it gets to the guitar solo in the song, I always just crank it up in the car, like I did it today, and it's just like some of Mick Ronson's best guitar work ever, as far as I'm concerned. Can't say enough about that.
That was well said. I like that comparison. Like I said, to Comfortably Numb, it's very similar in that sense. Just the sort of atmosphere that it provides in the song,
and it gives it that like spacey kind of sci-fi quality to it. That's kind of the album is kind of dipped in. You know, it's because it's not like, it's definitely like a sci-fi kind of opera, but that song really gives it. It almost sounds like what's make me think of it makes you think of like a spaceship landing or something, you know. It's cool. Or taking off, maybe.
Yeah, well, for sure, which is fitting because I mean, this song, it's basically, it's about this like alien messiah, and continues the themes that are, you know, introduced in 5 years. So the musical side of it absolutely is a great contrast to the lyrical themes of this song for sure. This song is exactly 3 minutes and 52 seconds in length, and it is, to me, it's perfect from start to finish. This is a great song. I believe it was released as a single. I don't know how well it did as a single, but this is just a perfect track in my opinion from start to finish.
I completely agree, and also the other thing about the ending of the song, because not only do you have Mick Ronson's like really epic guitar solo, but I had forgotten, and I just thought of this now, because of what you were saying in, I think, the last episode, or it might have been the Man Who Sold the World episode. That would also, I guess, be his Mick Ronson's string arrangements at the end of the song too. So not only is he killing the end of the song with a guitar solo, but those are his string arrangements that are also in the background, So
this song is just another example of just how detrimental Mick Ronson truly was in this era of Bowie.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about how great of a guitar player he was, and rightfully so. He's one of my favorite guitar players. But just as a musician as a whole, a composer, underrated in my opinion. And this track proves, I mean, like you said, that the orchestral buildup at the end. Oh, there's this song. This song alone, I can just spend the whole episode talking about this.
I'm glad that we are on the same page here. So we'll move on, I guess.
Yeah, I think you would be an ass if you disagreed.
Yeah,
and I'll leave it at that.
It would be this, like, again, this was one of those songs that just stood out to me immediately. I don't get. If you don't like the song, then just quit. I don't know.
Then just quit. Let's move on to track 4. Probably on par with Moon Age Daydream in the sense of just how brilliant it is. And that is, of course, Starman. Let's talk about Starman.
Yeah, this would... God, this is another one. Like, this is what I'm talking about the whole first side of the record. I mean, you have 5 Years, you have Moon Age Daydream, and then you have Starman. Again, one of the best Bowie songs, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's iconic for a reason. I guess, wasn't Starman a hit in the UK? I don't think it was a hit here, but
it was not here. Yeah, actually, I just pulled it up now.
Because I remember seeing a video of David Bowie on Top of the Pops playing this song. So
yeah, which is
I think it was a hit for him, at least in the UK. So,
yeah, it actually no. Starman was remained a single in the UK charts for 11 weeks straight. So I guess it hit number 5 originally.
Wow.
But it only peaked number 65 on the Billboard Top 100. So screw you, America.
Yeah, no kidding.
But oh man, this song was good. Originally, it wasn't going to be included on the record. Fun fact. Originally, there was going to be a cover of Chuck Berry's Round Round, which we'll get into when we talk about the bonus tracks later. It was, let's see, I forget the guy's name, but it was a rapid RCA at the time that had heard a demo of Starman. I was like, no, you need to include this on the record. He's like, this is amazing. So thank you for that guy for talking about, out of that.
It's funny because usually in that situation, the record company dude probably has a suggestion that's really annoying and is going to be detrimental to the record. But no, actually, it's like, hey, good on you, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that he wasn't going to include this originally because it has the themes of Ziggy Stardust. I mean, it describes Ziggy bringing a message I have in my notes of hope to Earth's youth through the radio, salvation by an alien, Starman.
Yeah, I always thought that too, that it fit right into the story, and I was reading about the whole the actual story behind Ziggy Stardust, and the thing that I hadn't really associated before, but it makes sense, was Ziggy kind of being being essentially the Starman character, like, from the song, where he's like, yeah, he's a rock and roller and everything, but he's almost like it almost makes me think of him being like a rock and roll version of Klaatu from what is it, The Day the Earth Stood Still, where it's like, I've come with a message, for Earth, to save Earth, But yeah, that's always kind of like I always thought it fit well into the whole concept of the record, So it is weird. That is weird to hear that he wasn't originally going to include this song.
I think this song to me is the most hunky-dory song on this record. Like this is a track that could have easily been on Hunky Dory. Obviously, I'm glad it's on this record, but I think it's the most hunky-dory sounding track out of any of these songs. And you know my love for hunky-dory.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you. I think it could fit on there, more than some of the other tracks. It is quite again another one where the some simple guitar work by Mick Ronson, but I really love it.
This is always a song, more than any other David Bowie song, where I've always wondered how Bowie felt about this song. And the reason why I say that is because there are so many David Bowie compilations and greatest hits and blah, blah, blah. And Starman's not on too many of them. There's very few. Like, the only one that comes to mind is the Nothing Has Changed compilation set that was released a few years ago. But other than that, if you really think about it, this song's not on too many of his greatest hits. And he also really didn't play this song live that much throughout his career. So because of that, I've always wondered how he felt about this song. And plus, on top of the fact that, again, he wasn't going to include it originally on the record itself.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't. I wonder if it's weird. Like, it's kind of funny that it ended up being, at least in the UK, I would imagine, the hit on the album. So it's kind of ironic.
Yeah. I've always wondered that. Always, for as long as I can remember, how he truly felt about this song. And I guess we won't really know at this point, but oh man, between this and Moon Age Daydream.
I'm reading, I'm just again scanning the Starman song, and I just thought you'd appreciate the fact that apparently in 2016, where is it? In 2016, apparently Bernie Sanders used it on the campaign trail.
Oh, boy.
I just happened to see that. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
I did not know that. That's an interesting fun fact, and we'll leave it at that.
So there you go.
All right, let's move on to track 5, which is also the closing track for side 1. It Ain't Easy. This is actually a Ron Davies cover, who I don't really know a lot about, to be honest with you. It's not a bad song, but it's my least favorite track on the record.
It's my least favorite track on this side, I would definitely say. It doesn't. It's almost like, it's weird. I feel like the record up until Starman flows really well, and then it kind of, I don't want to say dips, but it kind of changes, and it's slightly jarring,
Yeah, a little bit. I almost feel like side 1, like you could have taken this track out and side 1 could have actually closed with Lady Stardust, which opens up side 2.
I actually completely agree with that.
And then maybe there's a track that we'll talk about later when we get to the bonus songs, but maybe Velvet Goldmine could have been included in side 2 instead. But yeah, I do agree with you. It does. It kind of works, but it doesn't at the same time. It's definitely a weird way to close side 1. Like I said, it's not a bad song. I've always enjoyed it. It's another one of those songs like Soul Love. I don't listen to it individually. It's not going to appear on any of my Bowie mixes or anything like that. But yeah, it does kind of dip off a little bit as far as just the sequencing of side 1 in particular overall.
It doesn't retain the atmosphere of the album
I agree.
that is prevalent, even with, like, we were saying that Soul Love isn't an amazing song, but I think So Love fits really well with the other songs, whereas It Ain't Easy is just, like I said, kind of slightly jarring, and it's like the atmosphere isn't there, and like it is in the first four.
It almost sounds like a song that could have ended up on, say, like Young Americans.
Yes, I agree. But I will say, that being said, that the song has grown on me more over the years than it did when I initially heard the album. Because the first time I heard the album, I was like, it really wasn't. But the more I hear it, the more I actually do like it. So it's by no means a bad song, but it is. I definitely agree that it's not quite. It's just not. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that it's the last track on the first side, and it's the weakest one. So. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And I really don't have anything other than add as far as
same
as that goes. So let's kick it. Let's get into side 2, track 6, or track 1, side 2. If you're a vinyl guy, and that is Lady Stardust. I've always really dug this track. I think whereas 5 years, that open side one is big and it builds and builds and builds. I like that side two kind of opens up with this more subtle mid-paced ballad. Is really the best way I could describe this song. I think vocally, it's one of his best songs on this record. I mean, he vocally sounds great all throughout, but vocally he really shines on this particular track. Apparently this song, I forget where I read it, alludes to Mark Bolan.
Sorry, you cut out there. What?
Apparently, I was just saying, I forget where I read this song alludes to Mark Bolan. Which should be no surprise. I'm trying to see if I can find that really quick. But
I'm looking at it right now. It says the song is generally interpreted as alluding to fellow glam rock icon Mark Bolan. The original demo was entitled "He Was Alright, a Song for Mark."
That's right.
So, and also it looks like it's funny. The reason I actually clicked on it and I saw that was because I just clicked and I wanted to see about the song itself. I wanted to read a little bit about it because I was thinking I love that piano on Lady Stardust. It's really, really great, you know. Mick Ronson does the piano. I'm like, my God, it really, really, again, hammers home how important he was. And he also does backing vocals, which I kind of thought maybe that was him because the backing vocals did not sound like Bowie.
No, yeah, that is Mick Ronson.
So that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that, which is interesting.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I love this track. Like, I actually completely agree with you that I think this track should have, and actually, like I'll use your term. You've said like palate cleanser. I think it would have followed Starman really well and really closed the album or closed the first side of the record, very, very well. So I kind of do wish it had been the follow up to Starman. But yeah, it's also at the same time a really, really great opener for side two. So I pretty much agree with what you said. I like the song lyrically. Vocally, the piano is really, really great. I like Mick Ronson's backing vocals, and it's got a cool vibe to it. It kind of comes back to in my opinion, it brings that atmosphere of that's prevalent throughout the first 4 tracks on the record. It kind of brings us back to that, in my opinion.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's really, really good, really strong track.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think it's a great way to open side 2. I also agree that this also could have been the closer for side 1 if we had just nipped it in easy. So it could have worked in either spot. But regardless, I think it's a great track, and I think it's as far as this record, I think it's an underrated track as well.
Yes, I actually completely agree with that. So I think I have to say I think we are pretty much on the same page with this song too, which is interesting. Actually, with the record so far.
With the record as a whole, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of bumming me out a little bit. I love controversy. That's okay though. I think as we get further into the catalog, we're gonna see a little bit more of
I'm sure
opposing opinions, which I look forward to, of course. But let's move on to the next track, Star. This is a cool song. I'll say it's my least favorite on side 2, but it's still a freaking fantastic song. Like Moon Age Daydream, I love that guitar solo.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that's a banging, almost like that is like pure rock and roll. Is that guitar?
Yeah, this is
solo.
it's a total rocker, and I also love what I think is a homage to the song "Get It On, Bang a Gong" by T-Rex.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, just the way you sing it, where he's like, "Get it on," I don't know.
I never thought of that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It immediately makes me think of that song by T-Rex. So I don't know if that's the case or not, if that's where he was going with it, but considering the fact that he seemed to be referencing Mark Bolan and Lady Stardust as well, and he has Mark Bolan's been even on some of his records. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, as you just said, we just talked about Bolan, and he was such an influence and a close, friend of Bowie as well, that I would not rule that out whatsoever. I
always heard I remember my dad saying, and our mutual friend Dan, his dad always saying that, mentioning that Mark Bolan and Bowie had a feud, but I don't ever like remember reading anything about that. I don't know if that was one of those 70s like
no, they
things,
did.
you know?
And it was a little. It was like short. I want to say it was shortly after Ziggy Stardust because, as you know, Bowie really skyrocketed and continued to do so. And as you know, the mid 70s approached, and Bowie was doing Young Americans, and glam rock was sort of starting to fade out. Mark Bolan, who, as brilliant as he was, and T-Rex is just one of the greatest, 70s bands, never really evolved. Whereas Bowie, of course, did with, Young Americans, and then, the Berlin trilogy. And I think there was some animosity there with Mark Bolan at the time.
I think what's sad about, I'll just say this and then we can move on to the next track because I don't want to divert too much, but what was sad about Mark Bolan was that he was, he was starting to move in a punk direction with the last record or so. And unfortunately that's when he died, after he did Dandy in the Underworld. But he started, I think he toured with the Damned or something like that, and it was like a band like that. And if you listen to the very last T-Rex record that was released when he was alive, studio record, it's very punky.
Well, I know they must have reconciled because he had I forget what song they performed, but Mark Bolan had a show in the late 70s. That Bowie appeared on. Bowie was promoting. It was either Low or Heroes, and they did perform a song together. So they must have, settled their differences before Bolan passed away, of course. But that's interesting. I didn't know that. I'll have to check out that last T-Rex record.
It's cool. If you ever want to do T-Rex sometime, I'm down. Anyway.
Anyways, if you don't have anything more to say about Star, let's move on to track 8.
Yep, we're good.
Hang On to Yourself. This is another cool song. I almost want to describe this song as like a proto Ramones song. Like this just has a Ramones vibe, and the Ramones didn't even exist yet, of course. But this is a song that along with Suffragette City, to me, is just like the embodiment of glam rock. It's got glam rock to me is like punk rock, even though punk rock wasn't established yet, but like punk rock meets rockability. Like that's really the best way.
It's got that kind of got a bit of that 50s rock influence.
Right. That's sort of like the best way I can describe what glam rock is, and I think this song truly exemplifies that.
I would totally agree with that. Really, this most of the side is like that, which I really appreciate, and I love that sound. But I will say overall, I do like the unique kind of atmospherical side of the album more. But I do like the song a lot. It's a catchy tune.
It's a banger.
Some of these songs, like I said, some of these songs like It Ain't Easy, Star, Hang On to Yourself, took me a while. These were really the grower songs for me. But yeah, the more I listen to them, the more I like it. And this is probably, of those kind of like hard rocker kind of songs, this is one of my favorites. For sure.
Yeah, no, this is a great one. Excuse me. Guys, I apologize, by the way. There's been a lot of heavy breathing and coughing on my end, so I know the mic's been picking that up, so I do apologize for that. But anyways,
how dare you?
This was... I notice I keep banging on the damn mic, too. This is another song. We mentioned Arnold Corns at the top of this episode. This was another song originally recorded with Arnold Corns a year prior, which... Of course, again, this version is the superior version. But yeah, this was always a song I really dug. I really love the Live at Santa Monica version of this song, which I think opens that record. And we'll briefly talk about Live at Santa Monica at the end of the show. But this is just another great track. Yeah, it's
a fun rocker. I like the guitar, like the whole kind of punky sort of, what you said, rockabilly, 50s, old school rock vibe to it. It's a good song. It's not like incredibly remarkable in my opinion, but I do enjoy it.
Agreed. Yeah. All right, so then let's move on to track 9, which is the title track, Ziggy Stardust. This is another favorite for me. This is the one.
It's a classic.
It's iconic. Even if it's overplayed on classic rock radio, this is still an iconic song.
Absolutely, yeah. And that riff, the lyrics, Um, yeah, it's a real. This is, I think, the best. Well, no, actually, I'm not gonna make that statement. Never mind. It's one of the best rockers on the album.
Yeah, for sure. And this is really the song that, of course, hence the title of the song, really dives into the character Ziggy Stardust. And I don't want to get too much into the backstory of how the character Ziggy Stardust was formatted, because people have different takes as to how Bowie came up with the Ziggy Stardust alter ego character. But the biggest inspiration was a British rock and roll singer named Vince Taylor, who Bowie had actually met just prior to Ziggy Stardust, and I guess apparently had witnessed a breakdown that Taylor had, and he believed himself to be a cross between a god and an alien. And that, of course, is really the description of Ziggy Stardust. So that was sort of the formation. I've heard other stories that it was taking, influence from Iggy Pop, but like if Iggy Pop was fronting Lou Reed's music, there are several different backstories to how Bowie came up with the Ziggy Stardust character. But I just thought the Vince Taylor story was really interesting, and I always think of that story every time I listen to this song.
And I recall, I read, actually it was today, and I recall hearing about this way back in the day too, that Bowie really struggled with the Ziggy Stardust character, like for several years after he kind of adorned the persona, from what I understand. It sounded like from what I was reading, he was having a hard time separating himself from Ziggy.
He did, and that was really why he took on all of these other personas. Jack the Ripper, the Thin White Duke, was a result of him trying to move on from this character that he created.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's interesting that happens to people. I know a similar thing happened to Alice Cooper for a while. I remember reading about that, especially when he was like really heavy into his alcoholism. He was having a really hard time separating himself from the Alice Cooper character, and that's why, like, if you see Alice Cooper in interviews, he'll be like, oh yeah, when Alice is up on stage, like, he's talking about the character. He's not talking about himself.
Not talking about himself, right?
So it's weird how sometimes like artists have that they get so heavy into a character, and Bowie, as we know, is also like, he was pretty into acting and became an actor in some sense, and like you could tell that he put a lot into this character, and it seems like he really struggled with trying to separate himself from the character, and obviously the character had some pretty bad traits.
For sure, yes, which affected Bowie's personal life, which we won't really get into, but yeah, I mean, this Ziggy Stardust title track, it's freaking fantastic.
Oh yeah, iconic, man.
Which goes into the next track, which is also like just another great banger, and that's of course Suffragette City. Like I said when we were talking about Hang On to Yourself, I think that both Hang On to Yourself and Suffragette City really are truly just like representative of like what glam rock really is. You've got that classic line, of course, "Wham bam, thank you, ma'am." I mean, that line is iconic in of itself.
Come
right
on.
There.
I like this mellow fat chick just put my spine out of place. Like, it's a great line.
Apparently, I was reading that Bowie did offer this song to Mott the Hoople, who rejected the song, but very well known, they ended up recording All the Young Dudes, which Bowie also wrote. And we'll talk about All the Young Dudes more the next episode when we talk about Loud Insane. But I could have totally seen Mott the Hoople doing a rendition of this song as well. But whatever, because obviously the Bowie version would have been better either way.
I could have
didn't record it, but I mean,
I could have seen,
like Ziggy Stardust. This is also like the other big classic song that you'll still hear on a lot of classic rock radios still to this day.
This song, because I'm just staring at the track listing right now, this is the song, which is why I was hesitant earlier to say that Ziggy Stardust was my favorite rocker.
Yeah, and like I said, and I don't know if you heard me saying this, but this one along with Ziggy Stardust are probably like the two biggest bangers on the record. And I was also pointing out that I think along with Ziggy Stardust, and this is the other track that most people would probably be really familiar with. Still, you would still hear this song on, classic rock radio still to this day.
I think the biggest songs off of this are probably Ziggy Stardust and Suffragette City, and then maybe Starman. Moonage Daydream is still really popular, but it might not be for people who just know the hits, because I don't hear Moonage Daydream on the radio very much.
I don't either.
I don't even really hear Starman a lot on the radio, but I hear Ziggy Stardust and Suffragette City all the time.
It's usually, Ziggy Stardust or Suffragette City.
I want to talk about the outro of that song, because, I really love the way that the song ends. The dun 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 dun. A Suffragette City. I love that. And then I was speaking about Alice Cooper before. Have you ever heard? You know the song "Under My Wheels" by Alice Cooper?
No, I don't.
Go listen. Do me a favor when you get done. When we're done today, listen to the song "Suffragette City." And then immediately listen to "Under My Wheels," and Alice Cooper literally does, like, the outro of "Under My Wheels" is Suffragette City, and Alice Cooper is not shy about it. He says, "Oh yeah, it's a homage to that song."
Oh really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's like the same kind of outro. It's really cool. So just wanted to mention that real quick.
Yeah, I've always loved that outro too. Again, we talked about the rockabilly feeling.
Yep.
On "Hang On to Yourself." That's totally what that is at the end of Suffragette City.
It's awesome. Really, really great song. Really, the last 3 tracks here are a really great way to close out the album. Hey, and speaking of which...
oh, closing track. So this is my favorite song on the record. Rock and Roll Suicide. I talked about the first episode, my personal attachment to Bowie. And 2013 circa when Next Day came out, and how that record was like my soundtrack, and same thing 2016 Black Star, and I'm not gonna rehash that, but I will say that this song has always been really special for me. That line, "Oh no, you're not alone,"
it's pretty heavy.
In particular, I've always kind of considered myself not necessarily an outcast per se, but always kind of a little weird. And going back to like 2013, that era in my life that I was figuring things out, and definitely kind of felt like the oddball, and wasn't really communicating with a lot of my friends, and just. Like, I'll be the first to acknowledge that I'm a freaking weirdo, and I embrace it now. But maybe more so that time period, not so much.
This is why we get along, so it's all good.
Right. And this song to me was kind of like Bowie's way of just really, like, embracing us weirdos, Like, you're not alone. You're really not.
And he gets the point where he's kind of like screaming that, "You're not alone."
When he screams,
very raw,
very raw for sure. And so like that line alone has always been, very special for me. Oh my God, this song, like 5 years, it builds and builds and builds until he screams that line at the end. "You're not alone." That was terrible, by the way. My voice just cracked.
All I have to say, Andrew, is time takes a cigarette and puts it in your mouth. So cool. I love it.
Everything about this song from start to finish is just amazing.
Oh, it is a very, very good. It's a great closer too. This album could win an award for best opener and closer.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, you pretty much summed up my thoughts. I hadn't. I don't have that. I never really had that personal connection of the "you're not alone" thing, but I could definitely relate to it. So I can definitely see. I mean, you can hear just in the vocals and in the lyrics how raw the song is, and it doesn't surprise me that it connected to you in that way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only does Rock and Roll Suicide close the record, but this was the song that closed the set list, both the Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane tour. I mean, there's that classic performance from the Ziggy Stardust soundtrack before he plays it. That like, you know, this is going to be the last, you know, show with Ziggy Stardust. It's going to cease to, you know, exist afterwards, and then he goes right into "Time is a cigarette." So this song.
I'm glad. Yeah, it's a great tune.
This is
not
another
my
song
favorite,
I could do a podcast on.
I really do love this song a lot.
But yeah, I don't have anything to add other than that, I think.
Okay, if you want to just run through, you said you were going to go through real quick the B-sides and stuff, just because there's a lot.
So let's do that before we touch on top 3 final thoughts. Okay. And yeah, and then something else I want to add too that we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. Ziggy Stardust was, when it was first released on CD, it was released in 1990 through Ryodisc and EMI Records. And so it included 5 bonus tracks. The first one being John, I'm Only Dancing. Now, what's interesting about John, I'm Only Dancing is there's actually 2 versions of this song. There's John, I'm Only Dancing, and then there's John, I'm Only Dancing Again, which was re-recorded around Young Americans. And it's a pretty different song we'll talk about that version more when we do Young Americans. John, I'm Only Dancing is not a song I have always cared for. It's actually, as far as like Bowie diehards, it's a song that you always hear of, and it does appear on a lot of Bowie compilations, but both this and the 74 version, John, I'm Only Dancing Again, I never really got into. It was actually released as a single. I had the day pulled up. I think it was 1972, because Hang On to Yourself was the B-side. But there was a lot of controversy about this song when it was released, because this was right around the time that Bowie came out and said that he was bisexual. And the song is about gay relationships, specifically the narrator's informing his boyfriend to not worry about the girl that he's with because he's only dancing with her. So there was a lot of controversy when the song was released as a single.
And we didn't talk about To Couple With It, which would have kind of really exacerbated this, was and I meant to mention this, and I don't know how we have, but like obviously glam rock era, this was when like Bowie really started doing all the costumes, and like the entire band was glammed out, very feminine looking, you know. And that makes really adding to that whole mystique about him, you know.
So we got John, I'm Only Dancing. Then we have the next track, which I mentioned before when we talked about It Ain't Easy, Velvet Goldmine. I love this song. This has always been one of my favorite Bowie deep cuts. It was originally intended to be on Ziggy Stardust. I don't know why it wasn't. It would have absolutely fit. I think it even does reference Ziggy Stardust. It was eventually released as a B-side when Space Oddity, shocker there, because Space Oddity was frickin' released as a single so many times. Space Oddity was released as a single in 1975, and the 75 single, Velvet Goldmine, was the B-side. If you have not heard Velvet Goldmine, please, please, please check this song out.
I haven't heard that song in a long time, so I'm going to have to re-listen to it.
So good. It's on the 5 Years box set. It's on the 1990 version of Ziggy Stardust. It's on the 30th anniversary, 40th anniversary. Check it out. It's a great song. So We've got John, I'm Only Dancing. We've got Velvet Goldmine. Track 3, this is not a song I've heard of until today. And it's called Sweathead. And a little backstory on Sweathead. Its release came as a complete surprise to even the most diehard Bowie fans and collectors who were just not aware of this song prior to this.
It's Sweethead, by the way.
Sweethead, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. Sweethead.
I apologize, sorry.
No, you're fine. So no one was really aware of this song, even diehard Bowie fans, prior to the 1990 reissue. Even co-producer Ken Scott had forgotten about this track's existence, and he admitted that he was surprised hearing it for the first time in 22 years or however long. Not 22 years, but anyways. yeah, this is a cool song. This song is similar to Bombers in the sense the track we talked about that was sort of like a hidden gem from the Hunky Dory era, where like Bombers, this is a hidden gem for sure. If you have not heard this song, along with Velvet Goldmine, check this song out.
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard Sweethead, so I'll have to listen to that.
Sweethead, not Sweathead. Check it out. Like I said, like Bombers, this is just another one of those Bowie hidden gems that I just discovered literally today. And Bombers was the same thing. I think it was the day we were recording Hunky Dory that I discovered that track as well. So check out Sweethead. It's on this 1990 reissue. I couldn't find it on Spotify, so that's one you're gonna have to dig on YouTube for sure. But you'll find it. Then we have track 4 and 5 off the 1990 bonus version. Just a 1971 demo of Ziggy Stardust and Lady Stardust. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't listened to them yet, so I don't have an opinion on them. Then we have a couple bonus tracks from the 30th anniversary. We've got the Arnold Korn version of Moon Age Daydream and Hang On to Yourself that we talked about on the Man Who Sold the World episode. They're worth checking out. They're obviously not as good as the Ziggy Stardust versions, but for diehard fans, they're worth checking out. Track 3 is a song called Holy Holy. I think we also talked about this song on the Man Who Sold the World episode. It was re-recorded in 1971, eventually released as a B-side to Diamond Dogs in 1974. It's another good track that's worth checking out. There is a Jacques Brel cover of Amsterdam, which I'm not really familiar with Jacques Brel that much other than Scott Walker. Scott Walker covered a lot of Jacques Brel songs, on a lot of his late 60s records. This was a cool cover. It's worth checking out. It kind of gives me some Space Oddity vibes a little bit, so definitely check that out. There's an alternate version of the Supermen that we also talked about on the Man Who Sold the World episode. That's a good version of that song. I might actually like it better than the album version. Then we have that Chuck Berry cover that we referenced earlier, Round and Round. I think it's just okay. Nothing really exciting. I'm glad it got replaced with Starman, and I'll leave it at that. Then we have the last track, which I haven't listened to either. It's just a new mix of Moon Age Daydream. I've heard it's good. I haven't listened to it myself, so I'm going to get around to checking that out eventually. But that is it for all the bonus stuff. I told you there was a lot of bonus tracks and B-sides for this one, yeah.
So the ones I will check out are Velvet Goldmine and Sweethead.
Velvet Goldmine, Sweethead, and Holy Holy are the three. Definitely check out. Yep.
Okay, cool. And you should too, pointing at the screen.
So, final thoughts. Before we get into final thoughts, something I meant to propose to you off mic and just forgot. Do we also want to give a rating, say like out of 5?
A rating out of what? Sorry?
A rating out of 5.
What if we did a rating out of 10?
Ooh, you're killing me. Yeah, we can do that. Let's do a rating out of 10.
Okay. Okay, for me, as far as Bowie albums go.
So, sorry, not to interrupt you. Give your final thought first and then give your rating. Or do you want to do top 3 tracks first?
Let's do top 3 tracks.
Let's do top 3 tracks first. You do yours first.
Okay, mine is very simple. Moon Age Daydream, Starman, 5 Years.
Ooh, okay. This was a hard one to do a top 3 for.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, like Lady Stardust could be a contender, Suffragette City, Rock and Roll Suicide, but sure. I think well, I'll get into what I was gonna say when we do our final thoughts here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And despite how hard this was, I'm absolutely content with my top 3. And in order, Rock and Roll Suicide. I almost said Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, by the way. Rock and Roll Suicide, Moon Age Daydream, 5 Years.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I assume your fourth one would have been Starman.
My fourth would be Starman, yeah, which was
I'm guessing
it's really tough keeping Starman now, but yeah, I'm going with that as my top 3.
I really think, like, as far as all the tracks go, we are on just about completely the same page, except maybe Rock and Roll Suicide I think you like a bit more than me, but I still really love the song. So we're like like tit for tat on this one, man.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I gotta tell you, and this I guess could be a segue into my final thoughts.
Go ahead.
Despite hyping this record as much as both of us have done so in this episode,
mm-hmm.
and I referenced this in the beginning of the episode, and maybe this is just truly a testament to not only how great the man actually was, but how much of a diehard fan I am. As much as I've really hyped this record, putting it against Hunky Dory and Aladdin Sane, I put it on the bottom. And I still freaking love this record. This is such a fantastic record. But I love Hunky Dory and Aladdin Sane even more.
Well, I think we might disagree because at least with Hunky Dory, well, actually I'd say probably both. But it's like between those two, it's really hard to compare. First of all, stylistically, I think those three records are actually really different. You know, you could tell there's a different approach. Like every Bowie album kind of has a different. Like you have certain albums that are kind of close. Like I hear some Hunky Dory in this, and I can hear a little bit of Ziggy to Come in Hunky Dory. But I think in a lot of ways, like they are a very different record, so it is kind of hard. And certainly, Aladdin Sane definitely is quite a change in my opinion. From this.
For sure. I would almost describe Aladdin Sane as like an expansion.
But what I was thinking of today, and I'm not going to compare it to Aladdin Sane, I think yet, because I think I want to definitely do the review for Aladdin Sane and everything. But as far as Hunky Dory goes, I think why I like this one maybe just a little bit more is because do you remember when we were talking about with Hunky Dory?
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like this album was very similar to Hunky Dory in that the first side was so much better than the second side. That's my opinion.
That's where you and I disagree. While I agree that probably side one of Hunky Dory is better, that side two is so underrated in my opinion. So underrated.
Yeah. Well, for me, I would say that is probably the case, and I feel like Ziggy Stardust, the side two is better than the side two from Hunky Dory. That's probably where we would disagree, but I think that probably is it. Now, I will admit that I probably could stand... I mean, I know Hunky Dory really well. I know I've been listening to that album for a long time, but I feel like there could be potential on that album for a little bit more grower... Some of those songs on there being growers, but as it stands now, I think I do like Ziggy a little bit more.
Okay,
but
and I would be interested... Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, I'll be interested to see if that remains the same or if it does change. Because like the King Crimson series, when we got to our rankings at the very end, I know both of us had some changes in the sense that certain records grew on us and surpassing others, and Bowie having the long catalog that he does. I'll be interested when we do eventually get to the end of this series, where they all stack, especially with some of the later stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as the record itself, I mean, it's just, to me, it's a reason it's considered like a classic album, timeless classic. I don't think there's a bad song on here. There's definitely weaker songs, but especially those first 4 tracks and probably the last 3 tracks and Lady Stardust are some of the best stuff that Bowie, I think, has done. You really have some really great stuff in there. I mean, especially like you said, Rock and Roll Suicide, Suffragette City, especially Moonage Daydream, Starman, 5 Years. I mean, there's some really great stuff in there.
Absolutely, and I agree with that too. I know I just said that I like Aladdin Sane better, and we'll get more into, my feelings on Aladdin Sane on the next episode, of course. But whereas there's one song on Aladdin Sane I just generally think is not a good song, I do agree that Ziggy Stardust, there's not a single bad track. There are a few that are okay, like you said. But whereas Aladdin Sane, in my opinion, at least has one song that I just don't think is a good song, this record doesn't have that.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's do our final ratings.
I'm going to give it a 9.
I'm going to do the same. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Yep, I think a 9 out of 10 because it's not my favorite Bowie record, but it's nearly flawless and it's hard not to. It's fucking Ziggy Stardust, man.
It's it's such an important record in not just Bowie's career, but just music in general. And this would be the one. If I'm gonna get someone into David Bowie, this would be the one I'd start with. But by all means, it's not his best record, in my opinion, at least.
Oh, this was not the first studio album of his, I've heard. This was like the third or fourth.
Okay, and that's where, it's different for me. As we said at the beginning of the episode, this was the first one I heard. But yeah, no, I'm actually surprised that we both said 9 out of 10. I thought you were going to rank it a little higher, like a 9.5. I didn't think you were going to give it a 10 out of 10, but I thought you were going to give it at least a 9.5.
I think the 9 out of 10 is about right.
Okay. Alrighty, well, that's Ziggy Stardust, guys. Episode 5, right? Yeah, episode 5.
Yep.
Rise and Fall. And Ziggy Stardust.
And the Spiders from Mars.
And the Spiders from Mars.
Right, and next time you guys tune in, we'll be talking about Aladdin Sane, which should be very interesting.
Sane. And that should be coming out soonish, right?
I don't want to speak for my wife, but I think it's her favorite album by Bowie, but I might be wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then we're going to have an album after that I'm really, really, really excited about, which should be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we got Diamond Dogs after, and then I gotta tell you, I'm actually really looking forward to Young Americans. Brace yourself, guys. That's gonna be a long episode. Young Americans.
Which one?
Young Americans.
Young Americans? Oh, okay.
We gotta talk about the Gouster and and all that stuff. So yeah, Young Americans will be our longest Bowie episode to date, but I'm looking forward to that. I'm getting ahead of myself now. Aladdin saying it's gonna be great. Diamond Dogs. It's like we said the last episode. It's gonna be great for quite a while.
Oh, I totally agree. Do you want to just briefly, because we're almost hitting an hour and a half here, do you want to just sum up very quickly the live album you wanted to talk about?
You know what? Because I'm looking at time. Let's talk about Live at Santa Monica the next episode.
Okay, so we'll start next time talking about Live at Santa Monica, and there's another in-between kind of album, which is just a cover album, which we'll either talk about. We'll try to wedge in there somewhere.
Yeah, and that gives you more time to listen to it too. So for just to kind of give you guys, I guess a quick sneak peek of the next episode, the Aladdin Sane episode, we'll start the episode where we'll briefly just kind of summarize Live at Santa Monica, the Ziggy Stardust motion picture soundtrack, and then we'll talk about pinups briefly as well too, and then then it'll be all things Aladdin Sane. But
sounds good to me.
Yeah, we got to wrap this thing up. So.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast as always. Again, if you want the audio-only version more accessible for like listening on the go or whatever, definitely check out our Anchor. We're still on YouTube. I've been trying to update every 2 weeks. I haven't been as consistent, especially through the holidays, but I think I've got a schedule I can work with, and roughly around about a week. Well. Yeah, and basically around the weekend, I'm shooting for Fridays, but usually the weekend after 2 weekends after the last podcast was posted, you can expect the next one. So just bear with me. I'm a busy guy.
Yeah, no, we both are. And now that we're past the holidays, we'll be a little more consistent with the schedule for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But all right.
Alrighty, but until next time, that was episode 5, Ziggy Stardust. Stay tuned for episode 6, Aladdin Sane, and for now. Bye.
And for now, freak out in a moon-age daydream, oh yeah!
Alright. Terrible ending. Bye, guys.